Howdy everyone, dankydrank here, and today we're going to be talking about objects in Java. And what's so important about this is that Java is an object-oriented language, which means that you can create objects and use them. I'm not sure if that should be hyphenated. I think it should be. So it's an object-oriented language, and that means you can create objects and use them. So now we have three questions, now that I bring that up. That is, what are objects? Why and when would we use them? And how do we make one, / what does it look like to instantiate or create one? So, I'm going to answer these in order. What are they? Well, objects are kind of like suitcases. They contain what are known as instance variables or fields, things along those lines. And now what does this mean? Basically, every time you create an object, it has variables that are specific to that particular instance of that object. So here's an analogy. Let's say you're going on a plane, but you can only take one item. However, you need to bring a ball, a flower, and a shirt. What do? Well, hopefully you said, I'll just bring a suitcase. Now, I mentioned up here that these contain instance variables or fields. These are both terms that are known to describe objects. So each object has its own variables that are specific to that particular object. So if someone else had the exact same type of suitcase as me, they would most likely have different items in theirs with different values, etc. So basically, an object is just a bag of primitives and possibly even other objects. By the way, strings are objects. You guys have already been working with objects in a lot of ways. So I'm going to finish going over this, and then I'm going to head over to Dr. Java to show you guys some actual coding. So also, guys, I know the quality of this video is in 720p. It's a lot easier for me to teach you guys in that way because I don't 1080p, just the text is too small and it doesn't work as well. So 720p from now on. Sorry about that. So let's just say you have an object that contains an int, a boolean, and a string. Here's what your object would look like. Let's draw a picture. So actually, let's modify this. I don't want to do an int, boolean, and a string. Let's just model what a student would look like. Let's say we're making an object. Let's say that we are going to make an object that will act like a student. So let me shift this over a little bit, and we'll just copy this over to the next slide. And we'll change the color of that to black. So there we go. So this is going to act like a student, and here's what your object would look like. So we have our student here, and basically what the student is going to store is its name and its grade. So basically in here we have, for grade, we'll obviously do an int, 0 through 100, int grade, and then we're going to have an int, or a string that is the name. So we have these two things in there in particular, and they are going to be basically storing our values for this student. Now, there's a thing when you are creating objects that would basically, you basically have to define whether the objects or the variables inside the object can be accessed by other classes or not, but I'll get to that in a minute. Now, we would have what is called a constructor. And this is just a method that gets called whenever you create an object. And it would take two parameters, so basically people could pass values and fill name and grade. So it would, a constructor that would take in an, or a int, an int, and a string. And basically taking in, by that I mean it would have parameters that are basically one's an int and one's a string. And again, it's just a method that gets called whenever you create an object. I'll show you how to create one shortly. So the next thing that it would have is a way to get the grade, because you can't just go in and access the grade. You need to have a method that will return the grade. So we say public int grade, or get grade. I'll just write it on one line. You can do that, by the way. It's return grade, semicolon, and bracket. So yeah, by the way, white space isn't recognized by the compiler in Java. So you guys are all good in that regard. So then also we have a public string get name, and then what this would do would, I'm gonna put it on one line, return name. And by the way, this constructor up here, guys, would assign int or grade. I'm gonna need to move these guys, sorry. Okay, let's bring them down here. There we go, out of the way. Assign the object's grade to be equal to the parameter. And what I mean by this is it would, I'm gonna delete this, I don't know why that's like that. It would basically be a method that would just set these two variables to whatever the arguments were. And these also need to be private, but I'll explain that in a moment. You don't know what that is yet. So let's go to the next page. So we just answered what they are. They can store things. They're like a suitcase. So this would store a name and a grade, and it would have ways of accessing them and setting them, possibly. And by the way, if you can't set any or change any of the variables inside an object, it is called immutable. That's a good term. I'll write it out here. Quote, immutable. I believe it's spelled like that. So next slide, we just answered that. So why and when would we use them? Let's say you could only use one item, or you wanted to, let's say you had a method that you wanted to process a student's grade, for example. Let's say you'd pass the student, and it would basically, or you'd pass the student to the method, and it would process their name and the grade and print them out to the console. So let's write a little method that would do that. We'd say, just based on what we had in the last one, not knowing what the constructor is yet. So we'd say public void print report card student s, and basically by saying student s, we're saying that this takes in a student, and I'll show you how to create new students shortly, and we're going to go into Dr. Java and actually write code. So by this, basically what we're going to do is we're going to say int name or int grade equals s dot get grade, because s is the object. It's just like a variable that you can call methods on, and I'm going to explain how that works. Basically, when I say s here, s is a variable, so we have variable s, and what this does is it points like that to our actual object. I'm going to draw this. And then this is the student's student. And that's actually the student's memory address. So that we know it points to the student. S itself is just a variable that points to that particular memory address. So let's go ahead and we're going to go back into this box here. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to write some code. So int grade equals s dot get grade, string, which is another object. Strings are immutable, by the way. You can't change any of their values. When you add things onto a string, you're really creating a new one. So string name equals s dot get name, and then we're going to print this out, system.out dot print line. We're going to print out name plus, and guys, this, if you didn't know, is how you type a tab in, or when you're in a string that will actually print out a tab. You do \t. \t is the escape sequence. You can also do \n for a new line. And if you want to actually type a \, you need to type 2 backslashes. Also, if you want to type quotes, it's \quote. So \t is for tab, \n is for new line, \quote is for quotation mark, and \/ is for an actual \. So plus \t, because we want to have it a little bit over, plus name. So that will print out their grade, their name, and then, or yeah, their name and then the grade. Oop, hold up. There we go. That's right. So now let's carry on here a little bit. So this is kind of what one looks like, but let's talk more in depth about what it looks like. So we're going to create the student class, exactly. And I'm going to end up pasting this code right into Dr. Java in just a moment, and we're going to compile it with this print record card method, and we're going to see what it does. So public class student. Now that thing called the constructor I just talked to you guys about, we're going to make one of those for this. So we're going to write public student, and we're going to just leave those parameter spots empty for now, and so we'll just do it like that. There we go. So basically what this means, if you're going to create a constructor, this is called a constructor, and what it does is it is called whenever you create a new object. And this is just the syntax. You write public followed by the name of the class. It doesn't return anything. It doesn't do anything like that. Just public name of class. And that's just Java syntax. I mean, it kind of makes sense, but not really. So, I mean, I can't really explain it further beyond that. And so for this particular instance, sorry if you guys can hear that, that's my garage. We're going to have this take in an int, and we're going to call that grade, and a string, and we're going to call that name. And so, based on this, what we're going to do is, first we need a class, or an object-specific reference to grade and name. And in the past, we've been writing things with static. Now, you don't need, like, in this method that we wrote here, you notice I didn't write static. Static means that it belongs to the class itself, whereas not writing static means that it can be instantiated as an object. So, or instantiated, whatever it is. So this can become an object right here, this method, because it doesn't have static. And if you did write static, it would no longer be a constructor. And there are actually these things called fields, which you can write as static or non-static. We're going to write them as non-static, which basically means that they can be, or they're specific to each instance or certain example of this student. So private, this is the hardest concept to grasp in Java, by the way. I'm going to probably be making another video about it just to review. So private string name, and we're writing private here. Private, for those of you who don't know me, it can only be accessed within this class, and that's a very good practice for objects because you don't want other people to go in. Let's say, for example, this is a good way I heard it put, that your computer has, say, like a processor with, or let's say your computer has 8 gigabytes of RAM. You don't want someone to be able to go into your code and say, okay, RAM available actually equals 200 gigabytes, because then your program will just run at a much higher rate and it will crash, and that's not good. So we make this private so other people can't access it from the outside and change it, and it's just a good practice. And then we're also going to write private int grade, and we're just declaring these here. And now there's a cool little thing here. Basically, if we were to say like grade equals grade, that wouldn't work because it thinks we're referring to this grade. So you have two options here. You can either change the name of your parameter and leave your class name the same. You can, or I guess 3 options. You can change the name of your class variable or your field and leave the parameter variable name the same, or you can say this dot grade. This is just a weird syntax with Java again. You were referring to this particular instance of grade. So this dot grade refers to this class's, or this instance of a class's grade. And we can do the same thing for name. So we can say this dot name equals name. And what this method again is called whenever you instantiate the class. So called on object creation. Oop. I'm going to shift this over a little bit so we can see that. All right, there we go. So that's called on object creation. And what else do we have? So there's the constructor. Now we're going to write the getName and getGrade methods. These are really easy, and we're going to make the students immutable objects so you can't set their name or grade. If you were to want to create a method called setGrade that would set their grade, you'd write something like this: public void setGrade int grade. And then, of course, I showed you with this, the keyword this. It'll light up blue when you type it in most compilers. This dot grade equals grade. You just don't want people to have access to the variables directly from the outside. Otherwise, they do not so good things. So, it's just good practice in many programming languages. I know it's like that for the AP exam, definitely, if you're planning on taking that ever. Just in general, if you go into comp sci, private variables are a good thing. You can also make public, but don't do it. So, now, let's write the getName method, public void getName, and this is just going to, not void, string getName, and this is just going to return. If you guys want to type this in your compiler, feel free. This is just going to return name. And by the way, classes, of course, have to be named the same as the file. Hopefully you knew that by now. Hopefully I've been doing a fairly good job teaching you. And we're also going to have public int get grade. And we're going to return grade. So that's that. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this really quick. So hold up, let me exit out of the text box. And we're going to save this to my tutorial folder. Hold up. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Save it. And there will be a PDF of this in the description of this video. I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and I will be back in a moment with some Dr. Java so I can compile this for you guys. Be back in a minute. Alrighty, so here we are in Dr. Java, and the first thing we're going to do is create a class called student. So what I'm going to do really quickly here is in my little programming folder, I'm just going to delete everything. So we're going to delete all of that, and there we go. Now we have a fresh start. And so we're going to just go ahead and in what should have opened up in Dr. Java was an empty file. Just type in public class student, and we're just going to rewrite this. So we're going to do, again, private int grade, private string name, and I already explained all this, so hopefully it makes some sense. By the way, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Public student, and this dot grade equals grade. I'll fill in the parameters in a moment. This dot name equals name. Because this won't compile as is. Okay, now we int grade string name. Okay, and now we're going to public void get grade. Not void, int get grade. Hopefully I didn't write that in the video on the whiteboard thing. Sorry, my phone just vibrated. So we're going to return grade, and then for the next one, public, this would be string get name, return name, and now I'm going to go ahead and pull up that whiteboard program again really quickly here. So let me open this up really quick. It's being weird with me. Sometimes it's not the best program. I mean, I still have some bugs with it that I need to fix because I programmed it. So object, okay, let's load this back up. And I'm going to go ahead and write the exact example that we had in here. So print report card. We're going to write that right in here. Actually, I'm a new class, so let's go ahead and compile this, save it as student, and we're good there. So new class, we're going to call this public class testing. There we go. And we're going to write a main method. Static void main string bracket args. Okay. So now let's go ahead and just write that code that we wrote in the whiteboard program in here. Sound good? Capiche? Okay, I guess it's not going to let me resize this, so I'll just have to do it. So we're going to write... Oh, first I need to show you how to create a new student. Dope. Okay. Student S equals new student. Dankydrank. Actually, I think I might have took... What order did I do this? Grade name. Okay, so 1000, comma, space... let's go dankydrank for the name, and Then let's do student y equals new student 999, comma space, the new Boston. And we're just going to go ahead and write the method that we had in the whiteboard now. So we're going to write public void print report card student s, and we're going to say system.out.print line. I'm going to kind of shorten this up a little bit. s.getName plus tab plus s.getGrade. And there we go. So now let's go ahead and say print report card. Oop, this needs to be static. Public static void. There we go. Print report card S. And then we're going to do the same thing, but for our other report card. So let's go ahead and do that. Oop. So let's print out one for Y. Beautiful. So now let's compile this as testing. And now when we hit run, it'll print out dankydrank 1000, the new Boston 999. And how this works, it says, okay, we have a new student, goes to the student class, calls this method, says that this grade is equal to this grade here, and this name is equal to the parameter, or the argument name. And then, by the way, these are accessible within this entire class, but not from any other classes. Then we create one called the new Boston, same procedure. When we go to print out S, it says, okay, we're going to print out s.getName, so it calls this, okay, and it's calling it on that particular instance of this class. So the name would be dankydrank there, so it prints out dankydrank plus tab plus, okay, the particular grade would be 1000, so it prints out 1000. Yes, I know, I have very good grades. So that is it for now, guys. Hopefully this video didn't drive you absolutely crazy because it's really long and confusing, but hopefully I taught you guys how to deal with objects in a good manner, and hopefully you learned something. So for now, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try and touch on them in future videos and or just reply directly to you. So thank you very much. Bye.